this tip is brought to you by Motocross Hideout. Today you're going to learn how to replace a fork seal on a conventional damper rod fork, specifically from a TTR125 dirt bike. The first thing you want to do is break loose the fork cap, which you want to leave it on the bike when you're doing it, because it's really hard to get a grip on it once you take it off. So what you do is loosen the top triple clamp and then take the right size hex bit. This is a 14 millimeter, and then you just use a breaker bar on it and then just snap it loose. You only need to get it loose. After that, then you can just pull the fork tubes off of the bike. After that, bring one side into your workshop or your garage or wherever you're going to be working on them. And the first thing you'll do is remove this dust seal here. Just use a screwdriver here to pry it off. You can see that's really dirty there, because these fork seals were blown on both of these forks, which is why I am replacing the fork seal. I'm going to put it in the vise here because I don't have three hands, and it makes it easier to work with. Okay, the next thing you want to do is remove the stopper ring or clip. And this, need to remove some of this dirt and grime just to get at it. You can use a screwdriver to pry it off. You want to be careful not to scratch the fork tube while you're doing it. It may take a while to do this, so you just got to be patient. Take your time if you've never done this before, because you don't want to scratch or damage anything. And there it is. Just gotta work the whole thing out of the groove. Careful not to scratch anything. There we go. So the next thing to do is take the fork cap off. Be careful, on some bikes this is under load because of it's compressing the spring. So once you get to the top of the threads, you want to be careful and cover it up. Make sure it's not pointed at your face, otherwise you can poke your eye out with it. This one, there wasn't much load on it, so you can just take it right off. This is the spacer and the washer. And when you're taking all this stuff out, the best thing to do is put it all in order, so that when you put it back together you won't forget where things go. I can pull the spring out. Set it in there because there's still some oil on it. Now you can dump the rest of the oil out. On this one there probably won't be much because a lot of it went out on the fork. So don't be surprised if there's hardly any oil left. You might want to let it sit for a few minutes so it can drain out all of the oil. Okay, now it is time to remove the damper rod, which is in here and it's bolted through the fork leg. So on this end you'll need an Allen wrench, But that alone will not break it loose, because if you just do that, then it's just going to spin the damper rod in there. So you need a damper rod holder. And for that, you can buy a special tool for it, depending on what bike you have. Or a lot of people just make their own homemade tool. And for this one, the damper rod, the end of it is about 14 millimeter. So what I did was take this 14 millimeter hex bit socket and put it on the end of a socket extension. And now I can just put it right in there. Now it fits nice and snug on there. Alright, now I can just break it loose. And then hold on to this. There. Now once you got the bolt out, the damper rod is free, so carefully let it slide out. There it is, and then you got a few more parts here. Now you can pull out the inner fork leg. Here's the bushing. Inspect it for any wear or damage. It looks to be pretty good shape right now. Well, since we are missing a piece, which I believe is number 11 here, I'm gonna have to order a new one. Okay, well, this is the part that I was looking for. It is the spindle taper. I found it, and it was just at the bottom of the fork leg. So this is why you gotta take your time. If you're doing this for the first time, just take your time and make sure you do things right. This is the copper washer. Now the last thing to remove is the fork seal. And you can usually just do that with a long screwdriver. Just being careful not to gouge or scratch anything. Might take a little bit of force to get it out, but it will come out. And that does it. This is the top, so you want to lay it down like that so you can remember how to put the new one in. Because if you put it in upside down, it's going to be a waste of time if you're doing this. And you can check the bore of where the seal was. Check for any gouges. And it looks to be in pretty good shape. Alright, time to put things back together. So, you can see in this illustration here that the spindle taper goes in first. So you can stick it on the bottom of the fork leg here and put it in there carefully. Try not to scratch anything. There we go. Now you can see that this bottom spring goes on the damper rod like this, and then that goes through the fork leg. Now you can take damper rod bolt and copper washer, put it there, and get your handy dandy damper rod holder tool. Shove it in the fork leg carefully. Now you can get your Allen wrench, hold on to the damper rod, tighten down the bolt. You want to nice and snug, but you don't want it too tight. Otherwise, if you have to replace the seals again, or if you want to change oil, it's going to be a pain in the butt to take out. So, grab hold of the damper rod holder, and just get it nice and snug. And that's good. After you got the fork legs bolted together, next you can put on the new oil seal as opposed to the dust seal. So, the best way to put this on is to have something covering up the fork leg so you can slip it on so this won't get cut on any of the lips or the scratches or corrosion or anything like that on here. And so what I did is I cut out a piece from a plastic water bottle that's straight, and I will just wrap it around here with a cone shaped, and then slide the seal right over. But you need some sort of lubrication so you can slide the seal over it easily. Some people suggest grease, as in marine wheel bearing grease, but I am not going to use that because grease, it stays in there and it can contaminate the fork oil. So I recommend using Vaseline, or this is petroleum jelly, which is basically the same thing. So just take a little bit of Vaseline and put it on this plastic strip, rub it in there, get the seal ready, then wrap the plastic piece around it, cone shape, then slide the seal over, making sure the seal is going on the right way, comparing it to your old seal so it's not upside down. Slide it on. Slide it on with it over plastic piece so it gets over any of the corrosion or nicks on the top. Bring it to the bottom, and now the fork seal is on. There. Now you need some sort of fork seal driver, and you can buy the tool and they work really nice, but if you want to go the cheap route like I often do but still works just as well, you can make your own. So you just push that down as far as you can with your hand. I made my own fork seal driver, and what it is, just take some PVC pipe and then cut a couple sections about 2 inches long and just cut them vertically so one would go over the other, and then you just put some sort of clamp. This is just a radiator hose clamp, and then slide it on over, and then just tighten it on there. You want this to be hitting the fork seal and not the actual fork, otherwise it won't drive the seal in. So now it's clamped on there, and just push it on down with the driver. You can see it going down. And you keep on going down until you can see that ring, that groove, where the clip goes back in. I can see it almost there. And I felt it at the bottom. So you can see the ring there, so we can put the clip back on. So I'll take the driver back off. Take the clip. That back on. Careful not to scratch anything. And now it's all the way in the groove. Alright, now you can slide the dust seal back on. And just push it down. And then move the fork up and down, making sure there's no binding, making sure it's a smooth action. Otherwise, if it is, you'll have to take it back apart and assemble it again in the correct order. So now we need to fill it with some fork oil. Look in your manual for the recommended oil. I'm going to be using 15 weight fork oil in this TTR because I want it to be a little stiffer for adult riders, and it requires 5.27 ounces. So when you put it in, make sure the fork is all the way down, fully compressed, and pour it in. Probably going to have to do this a few times because you're going to need to measure it from the top. And I'm just using a dial caliper to measure it. And the distance from the top should be 5.1 inches for this bike specifically. Refer to your manual for fork oil height on your dirt bike. So this is a 6-inch caliper, and there's no oil on it yet, so add a little bit more. And there it is. So, you got the fork oil height set. Now, just put the last few parts in. But before you install the spring spacer, you want to move the fork up and down. Try and get the air out of the system. You only need to do it a handful of times. Now you can see that the spring goes in first. Now you can take spacer, put it on, the washer in between the spring and the spacer. And then put the cap back on. Just get it hand tight on here, and then you can put it back on the bike to properly torque it. And that is how you replace a fork seal on a damper rod dirt bike fork. Good luck! And this is Motocross Hideout.